what do you think of the New Atheists?
I don't like them.
How many times have your atheist friends asked you to prove the existence of God, and as a Catholic, you weren't sure how to respond? Well, you're not alone. That question defines one of the biggest debates of our time. The early 21st century saw the rise of the New Atheism, a movement born in the wake of 9/11, led by figures like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Christopher Hitchens. They launched an aggressive attack on religion, portraying faith as irrational or even dangerous. In the first clip, Bishop Barron gives us an in-depth view of how this movement began. Let's listen.
September 11th stirred to life again this old kind of Enlightenment idea. Religion is irrational, therefore it's violent. Because they can't settle things through argument, they have to settle them through bombs and guns and
Exactly.
war, right? So that's an old argument, goes back to the 17th century. It was revived massively after September 11th. The New Atheists, I think, rode that wave in a big way. Now, they were gifted rhetoricians, especially Hitchens, right? I admired Hitchens. I read Hitchens always with great pleasure. Dawkins less so. Sam Harris, I think, has rhetorical gifts. But their arguments, there's nothing new about them. They were old hat. They're borrowed from Marx and from Freud and from Feuerbach especially. So nothing new at the intellectual level. They were new in their nastiness. So like the classical atheists, think Feuerbach, Marx, Freud, you got the sense they knew they were dealing with a formidable opponent when they were fighting religion. The New Atheists, it was like they were dealing with an idiot child, And so that's what was so annoying about them, I thought. And their arguments were pretty bad. And they were, so aggressive toward religion. They did a great service, though. I'll say this. They awakened the Christian churches in many ways. The apologetic weapons that we threw away 40 years ago, we were compelled to pick up again. So a lot of us got into the game to kind of battle the New Atheists and to draw upon the very rich intellectual tradition, especially of Catholicism. So in that way, they did a service to us,
As Bishop Barron rightly points out, many of these so-called New Atheists behave as though they have finally discovered the ultimate knockout argument against religion, as if no one before them ever thought deeply about God, reason, or faith. They often speak with a tone of intellectual arrogance, dismissing believers as naive, emotional, or superstitious. But here is the irony. Their arguments aren't new at all. The church has been engaging with, challenging, and refuting similar objections since the earliest centuries of Christianity. From the early church fathers to thinkers like St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, the church has always embraced reason and met skepticism head-on. Long before modern atheists asked, "Can you prove God exists?" Catholicism had already given deep rational answers for God's existence. That leads us to what Bishop Barron discusses next, the fundamental mistake atheists make in their very assumptions about God. Let's listen.
Because the New Atheists, they make this mistake we were just talking about. They will construe God as some kind of big being. And, okay, is there this big being or not? Some say there is, some say there isn't. So it's like Bigfoot. Some say there is a Bigfoot. Others say there isn't a Bigfoot. Let's go look around for evidence and find out. Well, you'll never find God that way. God isn't a being. God isn't a thing in the world, right? He's the reason why there's a world at all. Therefore, you're not going to find him in the world. Therefore, you can't say things like, "Oh, there's no evidence for God," as though he's a chemical reaction.
Yeah,
or
the
something.
Yeti. Yeah,
right. He's not like that. You have to ask a whole different set of questions, and that's what the New Atheists did. And
like what? What were the questions?
Like, why is there something rather than nothing? Like, why should contingent being exist at all? How do you explain the to be of something whose nature is not to be? Namely, you and me and everything around us. I am, for sure, but my nature is not to be. I could think myself out of being in a second. There's nothing necessary about me. Well, how do you explain that? How do you explain that? Now you say, "Oh, it's all matter and energy." It'll never work. Why? Because matter is always matter under these conditions, matter in this size, matter of this energy, matter at this speed, matter of this color. How did it get there? Why is it this rather than that? See, so you can't answer that question, the really cool, interesting question, by appealing to something within the contingent world. You have to go outside the contingent world. And again, don't think of that spatially. So the minute you go, "Oh yeah, God must be that out there someplace," no, you have made him a big being. You have to go outside in the metaphysical sense to a reality which indeed contains all of that, but is in no way contained by it. Now we're talking. And that to me is the really interesting question.
This is such a fascinating point by Bishop Barron because not only do the new atheists make this error, but even some traditional Protestant denominations fall into the same trap. They tend to imagine God as merely being one being among many, just the biggest or the strongest in the cosmic hierarchy. They may call him the supreme being, but still picture him as part of the universe as though he exists without creation. However, that's not at all how the church understands God. As Bishop Barron explains, God is not one being inside the universe. He is the very ground of all being, the reason anything exists at all. The universe doesn't contain God, rather the universe exists because God wills it into being. This is why the atheist demand to prove God's existence through scientific methods completely misses the point. Science studies things within creation, matter, energy, and time. But God is the cause of all those things. You can't use tools that measure the universe to detect the one who made the universe itself. And that leads perfectly into the next question. If God isn't part of the physical universe, why do we still say that he is present everywhere? Tucker Carlson posed this very question to Bishop Barron, and his answer beautifully captures the mystery of God's transcendence and presence. Let's listen.
Would also suggest that God's like right here, right now, always.
Well, he is. And here's the interesting thing, and all the mystics and theologians around this. So, is God in this room? No, absolutely not, because this room is just full of contingent things, like you and me and the shelves and the books. And no, God's nothing in this. I can't point to, oh, there he is. God's in this room. God's nowhere in this room. Is God in this room? Yes, he's everywhere in this room, because this room wouldn't exist unless God were singing it into being. And so God is at the same time as transcendent as you can imagine, not a thing in the world, and as immanent as you can imagine. It was the great Augustine who said, God is at the same time superior sumo meo et interior intimo meo, which means he's higher than anything I could imagine, and he's closer to me than I am to myself. Now, figure that one out. Now you understand the God whose nature is to be. He's transcendent. I can't grasp him. And he's so immanent, I can't hide from him. See? And that's the space opened up by the Bible, I think.
Once again, as Bishop Barron so eloquently explains, yes, God is indeed present everywhere, but at the same time, he's also utterly transcendent beyond the created world. This is one of the deepest mysteries of the Christian faith. As St. Thomas Aquinas put it, God is higher than anything I can imagine and yet more intimate to me than I am to myself. In other words, just because God is present in all things does not mean he's part of all things. His presence sustains creation, but he himself is not contained by it. This is why the psalmist declares, "Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence?" And that naturally leads to another big question. If God sustains creation, then how does that understanding align with the modern science, particularly with the theory of evolution proposed by Charles Darwin? Let's listen.
I don't think you're fully on board with Darwinism. I'm getting that sense.
Well, there are a couple ways to look at that. I mean, there's a big debate going on right now in the world of evolutionary biologists about Darwin and neo-Darwinism and questions raised about it. I mean, in a way, I'm happy to leave that debate to them. I mean, because that's talking about how do life forms develop over time and given genetic variation and natural selection. Okay, fine. I'll let the experts debate that.
Yes.
That in itself is not really a theologically relevant concern. I'll leave that to them.
I agree.
But see, here's the thing. Creation in the theological sense has little to do with that. That's all about development of biological forms. Okay. Creation is something much more dramatic. Creation names the relationship that obtains between unconditioned being and conditioned being, or to put that in more regular language, between God and the world. So, I mean, like right now, here you and I are sitting here in this table, in this room, is entirely conditioned form of existence, by which I mean it is, but it doesn't have to be. I could have missed the ride up here today. You could have gotten sick. This thing could have fallen on the table. It could be 1,000 degrees and we'd be incinerated. It could be 1,000 degrees below zero. We'd be frozen. Like there are a million things that make this set of affairs real, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be the case. So how do you explain that? Well, you can't appeal endlessly to other contingent things. You have to come, finally, to some reality whose very nature is to be. That's not contingent, not finite, not evanescent, not dependent, but whose very nature is to be.
I am.
Right. Then go back to Moses. What's your name? See, Moses was asking a very sensible question for this worldly perspective. So, hey, what kind of glass is that? How tall is that glass? What kind of table is this? That's a nice table. What kind of table is that? So you're a god, obviously. You seem to know a lot about me, and you're. So which one are you? Are you the god of the mountain? Are you the god of the place? Are you god of these people? Who are you? Which one are you? What's your name? And so when God says, I am who I am, he's saying, dumb question. That is not the right question to ask here. Because I'm not a conditioned state of affairs. I'm not a being among many. My name is I am. I am who I am, right? My nature is to be. Well, now we're talking about the Creator. See, the Creator is the one who is here and now undergirding all the finite reality, who is right now, this is a great line from Herbert McCabe, the theologian, he's singing the world into being the way an opera singer sustains a song. God, the ground of being, is singing this finite world into being. That's creation. See? So now within creation, I can talk all day about the Darwinists and how the life form developed into that life form, and I'll let them debate that. But the religious question remains, no matter what you say about that. The religious question is about, why is there something rather than nothing?
Right, exactly.
Why should there be a finite conditioned world at all? You can't explain it by appealing endlessly to other forms of conditioned existence. You can't.
As Bishop Barron explains, the real issue isn't what evolution teaches about how life developed. The deeper question is why there is something rather than nothing in the first place. As Bishop Barron often says, behind all the contingent things in the world, things that depend on something else for their existence, there must be an unconditioned being, a reality that exists in itself and gives existence to everything else. Without such a being, nothing could exist at all. Without such a being, nothing could exist at all because contingent beings cannot cause themselves. They depend on something that simply is. And that's precisely what we mean by God. God is not one more cause within the natural chain of causes. He is the uncaused cause, the unconditioned reality that grounds and sustains all being. As scripture beautifully teaches in Colossians, for in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. So while evolution may describe the process of life unfolding, faith answers the reason there is life. Finally, let me end with the timeless words of St. Thomas Aquinas, who summed up this entire discussion perfectly. To one who has faith, no explanation is necessary. To one without faith, no explanation is possible. And perhaps that's the most profound truth of all. Reason can take us far, but only faith can open our eyes to the fullness of God's reality. I hope this video is helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.